Good evening. It is 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Thank you very much, Don. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of Saugeen Shores Council for the 22nd of September, 2025. Welcome all members, everyone joining us in the gallery this evening, and everyone watching via the live stream. I just wanted, before we start, I just wanted to acknowledge that right now, just not far from here, there's a visitation going on for a young man named Bradley Metcalf, who was tragically killed in our community a few days ago. And I just wanted to note the council and everybody at the town and everybody in the community has got their thoughts and prayers for the family and the friends and all the classmates of that young man, a real tragedy in our community. So I just wanted to note that and let those folks know they're in our minds as we begin our meeting. Second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Councillor Dubinsky has that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land that we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping the community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. And with that in mind, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to pass on my thoughts on the unveiling of the art on the Bell Building at Highway 21 and Lansdowne, that the land that raised us. And it does make the area look nice, but there is such a bigger story than that with this piece of art done by two Saugeen First Nation residents. And we thank them for that because that also helps with the education in the area. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people. And we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you very much. We're on to disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. 10.2, the Saugeen Sparks Training Center. I'm on the board of directors and a volunteer teacher for them.
Thank you. Any further declarations at this time? Seeing none, of course, you can declare one anytime you need to. No additions, deletions, or amendments, so we're on to adoption of the minutes, and we have the regular council minutes of September 8, 2025. The resolution is the council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 8, 2025 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dubinsky. Questions or comments to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, so now we have no open forum requests this evening, no public meetings, so we're on to delegations. Two delegations this evening, and so our first one actually is more a presentation than a delegation, and the chair of the Municipal Heritage Committee, Councillor Grace, is going to speak to the Heritage Conservation Award. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since 2002, the town has presented an annual Heritage Conservation Award to recognize an individual or groups who make contributions to the promotion of heritage in Saugeen Shores. Past winners have included those that have provided significant assistance in preserving and enhancing our historical, cultural, natural, and built heritage. Our committee this year was gratified by the strong slate of residents who were nominated and are grateful to the members of the public who submitted these nominations, illustrating how much our community benefits from the dedication of heritage volunteers. Our 2025 Heritage Conservation Award winner is Deputy Mayor Diane Huber. Diane is passionate about the heritage of Saugeen Shores and has demonstrated that passion through leadership as a Heritage Committee Chair and member, as well as spearheading numerous community engagement initiatives promoting appreciation for local heritage. As a member of council, Diane served on the Heritage Committee for 8 years, 2 of those years as chair. Throughout her tenure, Diane was an active member in the committee's extensive research, creating the first 3 phases of the town's Heritage Register. Reviewing committee minutes also revealed Diane's leadership in other committee initiatives, identifying significant trees, developing walking tours, expanding the interpretive plaque and property plaque programs, and arranging for a public workshop at the Southampton Town Hall on Ontario heritage policy and programs. Public promotion of local heritage is one of Diane's most important contributions to our community. Over the years, she has developed numerous materials to engage children in learning about heritage. Hundreds of children have delighted in button making and other fun activities at events such as Pumpkin Fest and the Marine Heritage Festival. Members of the public of all ages appreciate the displays Diane has researched, developed, and organized. In the fall of 2023, Diane personally organized a Doors Open event among the churches of Southampton. Under her leadership, St. Andrew's Presbyterian, St. Patrick's Roman Catholic, St. Paul's Anglican, and Southampton United Church all welcomed the public to tour their churches, helping residents and weekend visitors learn more about the history of their heritage buildings and parish life. Diane's love of history of Saugeen Shores, particularly Southampton, is deeply rooted in her family's history, as her grandfather was one of the 7 lighthouse keepers of the Chantry Island Lighthouse, and her family was involved in the civic and community traditions of Southampton at many levels. Diane has carried on those traditions in her own life through her involvement in the Marine Heritage Society as a Chantry Island tour guide and crew member, a Horticultural Society member, and as a member of the Chantry Island Chambettes, an organization dedicated to local charitable initiatives. For a number of years, Diane organized and funded a public post-Santa Claus parade party in the Southampton Town Hall. She assembled goodie bags, gifts, treats, and games for hundreds of children and families who joined the party after the parade. It was an event that warmed the hearts of all those who participated and kicked off the Christmas season with a lovely tradition that recalled old-fashioned Southampton. Our Heritage Committee thanks Deputy Mayor Huber for her many contributions to heritage conservation in Saugeen Shores, and we are pleased to present you with the 2025 Heritage Conservation Award.
All right, over to you, Deputy Mayor, for a few words.
Oh, I just wanted to thank the Municipal Heritage Committee for the honor. I know we look red on the camera. I feel very red. Councillor Grace said some lovely things that are very true in terms of my own interest in local heritage, but also just in telling stories. So I truly believe that heritage is very personal and that it can be as simple as knowing that you're named after your great-grandmother, or knowing where Poland is on a map and tracing it from Poland to Halifax to know how your family got to Canada. And also in the way that you celebrate a really big tree in a field every time you drive by because you know it's a pretty special tree. I'm talking about the elm tree at the Carson's farm. Heritage is very personal. It's also about community, and I wouldn't be as interested in heritage or as I guess well-versed in historical stuff without my involvement with the Bruce County Historical Society and also the Bruce County Genealogical Society. I'm also very grateful that the Bruce County Museum is in our community and has done a great job with getting resources online. You can spend hours reading old newspapers. There's great stories there. Some things have not changed. We're still talking about some of the same stuff here at council that they talked about 50, 60, 80 years ago. Just a couple of personal thank yous. Audrey Underwood is not here, but Joyce is. Audrey Underwood and Joyce Johnson were on the Heritage Committee with me, along with Bill Streeter and a number of other people, Councillor Grace as well. Audrey used to take us on road trips around Port Elgin and Saugeen Township and just tell us stories about people and about houses and locations. Joyce was one of the people that really introduced me into the ways that you can do research at the archives, and I'm very grateful for that. Bill Streeter, everybody knows Bill. He's received this himself. Cheryl mentioned, Councillor Grace mentioned the Marine Heritage Society. Mike Sterling and Bob Trelford, who also have received this award, have been extremely helpful in my own discovery of stories about Chantry Island, and I've told them a few things too. I'm still fortunate in having an uncle who's still alive, who's 95, and he tells the best stories about growing up in Southampton in the 40s and the 50s. If you have somebody in your family who is still alive, who's of a much earlier generation, get them to tell you stories about people, about the place, about buildings. Everything in our town can tell a story, whether it's something that is from 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago. I'll just end by saying that as a member of council, I carry on a legacy of civic service that started with my great-grandfather. Then my grandfather was also on council, and my dad. They were involved in lots of activity in this town, and it's a little different now. We're not necessarily creating a lot of stuff, but we're continuing some of the legacies that they built in the early 1900s and up to about the 1950s. Something that caught my eye tonight as I was driving to council and thinking about what I would say, I actually drove by the Hurricane Hazel site where we've installed a historical plaque. And sitting behind me is a niece who once upon a time did a speech about Hurricane Hazel, and she interviewed my dad to learn some stories about what actually happened in our community. So again, I'll just end by saying heritage is very personal, and take the time to talk with people about the stories in your own family and pass them along to little people. Take them to the cemetery, show them where the graves are, tell them stories about people that you know who are buried there, and make sure somebody back there knows exactly where to find those people when she goes into the cemetery. But thank you very much to the Municipal Heritage Committee for this honor. I'm very humbled.
Congratulations once again, Deputy Mayor Huber, of an award well-deserved. Okay, so now we're moving on to our second delegation, which is on the proposed 2026 police service budget. And we'll turn that to the Deputy Mayor, and I'm sure she'll be backed up by the Chief of Police, who's also here. So the Deputy Mayor. You can do it from there too. It's fine, whatever you want to do. Up to you.
The police chief is here tonight. He's here to answer the really hard questions as they come up. We did put together a slide presentation. There's at least two places where there's a typo in there. There's a comma where there should be a period, and there's some spacing. I'm sure a couple of you have found them, but I'm here on behalf of the Saugeen Shores Police Service Board. I chair that board, and as I said, the police chief is here as well. We're going to provide a preview of the 2026 police service budget. As noted in the slides, and I think, is it just supposed to go ahead, Morgan? Oh, okay, go back. The slides, as noted in the slides, there's some unknowns at this time and some items in the police service budget which are very hard to predict. A very fulsome budget presentation will come in the upcoming business planning meetings in November. The police service budget is vetted through the police service board. Membership on that board includes 3 municipal appointees and 2 provincial appointees. Councillor Stack serves with me as a council appointee, and John Woodley is the other municipal appointee. Pat O'Connor and Greg Tatey continue as the provincial appointees. Greg's term is actually up, so there should be a replacement soon related to his position. The budget is presented on behalf of the board, and I encourage all my council colleagues and members of the public to take a look at Section 50 of the Community Safety and Policing Act for more details about how estimates, budgets, disputes about budgets, and conciliation about budgets take place with regard to police budgets. The 2024 annual report is posted on the police service website. If any member of council wants a printed copy, let us know. One will be printed for you and left in your mailbox. There's a lot of information in there, but one thing I'll highlight is that the police in Saugeen Shores address 432 kilometers of paved patrol roads. And as we open up stretches of roads like Ridge Street and others in the community, that number will get slightly larger. And our community covers 170.58 square kilometers of area. The 2024 annual budget shows that the police budget is made up of about 80% wages and benefits, 12% materials and supplies, and 7% contract services expenses. As you read through the slide presentation, I'm not going to speak to all of the slides. There is, now I know why people are challenged when they have to use these. We have some areas that really drive the budget, and it's the population here, and it's the fact that the police budget is really related primarily to people. And what gets included in the personnel category is a number of items. Certainly there's wages and benefits, but there's training, there's equipment, there's uniform expenses, and there's some other things. So I believe that we'll be working towards a little better representation of the cost of personnel, because the 80% wages and benefits number that's mentioned for the people cost in the 2024 annual report is more likely closer to 85 or 86% of the police budget relates completely to people. The assessment for 2026 is not complete yet, but again, we're thinking it's going to land at about 85% people, 7% materials and supplies, and 8% associated with contract services and dispatch. The Saugeen Shores Police Service was provided with a population number to use in our budget deliberations. Again, it's a little bit hard to predict because that number is permanent population. The police, though, have to take into account temporary or seasonal residents, visitors, and influxes associated with special events. And later on, we're going to hear about the battle, which will bring people to town. There's sports events, concerts, Comic-Con, and festivals like the Marine Heritage Festival and Pumpkin Fest. Another thing about the police to keep in mind is that service is available and staffed 24 hours of the day, 7 days of the week, every single month of the year. So they don't get, snow days or anything like that. I've indicated on the slides, and I know you had a chance to read them, some areas that lead to challenges in defining our budget. The number of calls is unpredictable. The nature of calls is unpredictable. The demands for greater community patrols has become increasingly evident, and it's also hard to plan for overtime and scheduling. The police service is pretty lean, and we've got some young police officers who, of course, are potentially going to be able to take some parental or maternity leave. Also, the police service has a number of stressful situations that sometimes lead to short-term leaves. We don't have the ability with the service to just bring in a replacement on a very temporary nature, which one of the slides in the presentation talks about how long it takes to train a cadet. So you can't just imagine bringing somebody in. So sometimes there's challenges with overtime and scheduling, depending upon the nature of the policing action that's required at that time and also the personnel that's available. There's also been expressed a desire in the community for more proactive crime prevention activity. And that, is things like information sessions about fraud and other activity in the community to encourage an awareness of activity. We've got a pretty good social media presence, and that certainly does drive a lot of educational activity as well. There's also a very real changing nature of criminal activity in our region. I won't go into great detail, but I think if you pay attention to the news across Ontario, activity is just everywhere in this province now. So we are experiencing some of that here. And with that, it brings opportunities for more sophisticated policing activities and investigations. And so, we've certainly got some talented people, but as the opportunities arrive for multi-jurisdictional experiences, that's where police officers from a number of areas are involved in something here in Saugeen Shores, or our officers go somewhere else to help out. The ability or the opportunity to enhance your skill set or their skill set is pretty incredible. There's also opportunities related to the court. I put, I think, on a slide the challenges of court, but certainly it's something that takes up some time, and we don't have court here, so it involves somebody traveling. I do want to very specifically mention one of the other challenges that we have is related to civilian members. We heard a couple of weeks ago at council about the need for market survey for some town staff. The police service is undertaking a pay equity and market survey for civilian staff right now. We're using Gallagher, and it's required by legislation and also was part of our commitment during collective bargaining. That may potentially lead to some changes or recommendations for change going forward. But I'll get to really what we wanted to just give you a preview of. I do want to, though, mention also, again, the CSPA, the Community Safety and Policing Act. If you are so inclined, you don't have to read the whole piece of legislation, but just go down the table of contents and click on a number of things, and you'll see what the role of policing is, the role of the Police Service Board, and again, some information about budgets. We did put in the presentation something about additions. And what we're looking for, and I could jump ahead to slide 16. I won't, because obviously I'm having trouble moving it around. But one of the slides talks about the reality or of the preview, and it's that if we're looking at where we're at right now, we're kind of sitting at about a 10.7% increase year over year in the police budget. 3.2% of that relates to the addition of 2 uniformed sworn police officers, frontline staff. So that's about 3.2% of it. 7.5% of the potential increase reflects the realities of inflation, commodity and equipment pricing. I put on one of the slides the amount of gas that's used per month per police vehicle. So there's some fluctuation in commodity and equipment pricing. Increasing fees for some of the software and other things that are used by police officers in their vehicles and also in the station. Contract obligations, we do have some long-term contracts related to some software and also to dispatch. Dispatch is up for renewal next year, so it ends at the end of 2026, so that's an opportunity or it could be a challenge depending upon how you look at it. Collective bargaining led to a 3.5% wage increase for this year, and it's 3.5% for next year as well. We have insurance increases, legal increases, and we're trying to get closer to a true cost allocation within the police service budget. So you'll see reference to, on one of the slides, to the cost of electricity for the police building. We also are trying very hard to pay attention to member well-being and mental health. And so there are a couple of additions to the budget that very specifically relate to that. One is an increase for the Police Service Board, who is the employer of all the members of the police service, for us to have a tiny little budget that we can provide some staff recognition and support, but also another line relates to mental health opportunities. We had a pilot this year that was initiated from a request from the association, the Police Association, and it's been well received. And we also have another program. So we're going to continue that, but we also have another mental health program that has been implemented. There's really only two capital inclusions in the police budget that are to note. One is upgrades to the radio tower and supporting infrastructure. And the other one is consideration of reinstating the K9 unit. Riker had to be retired last summer when his handler left the police service. And so we've been without a K9 unit for about a year, a little over a year, and there's an awful lot of interest in the community to take that off of the pause that we put it on. We have unknown potential revenues with the police, grants. Don't know yet from the province whether or not we're going to be successful with some of the applications that are in. And also sometimes they announce things when it's almost time to have all the money spent. So we've worked with the assumption that the grants will be the same as last year. We've also had some good luck with submitting special funding applications. We've had a couple of experienced officers hired with the service over the last 2 years, and those experienced officers have brought skill sets with them that we think we're going to be able to tap into different funding streams to support work that they may have done somewhere else, that they bring with them those talents to us. We also do have the potential for some paid service. It's very limited, though. The unknown also of pay equity and the market survey is an unknown for us, too. I do want to just kind of end with, we will be doing a fulsome budget presentation for the November business planning meetings. We do have a strategic plan in place, which you can see it. It's on the police service website. And Councillor Mayette was the chair when it was created a number of years ago. So it's due for its update at the end of this year. So that'll be coming up this fall. And there will be some consultation. And I will also end with the Police Service Board meets monthly, generally on the third Wednesday of each month. Occasionally, we've had to change the date. The meetings are open to the public, or you can Zoom into them. The chief and I are happy to answer some questions, but this is just a preview. There will be a lot more detail, perhaps, in some of the areas coming up. But fundamentally, the police service budget is driven by the people in the service, and we're looking to increase the sworn frontline staff from 27 to 29 police officers for 2026.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Questions or comments from members? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of questions of the chief, and then I just wondered about this presentation tonight. I'm just curious about administratively. Are we going to hear from community services and operations and all other departments? Is this the new standard? I just wondered about we're going to hear a lot of the same information. So I guess I would just try to understand the process.
The CAO can speak to it.
Oh.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So as the Deputy Mayor mentioned, in November, we'll have 2 days of business plan budget meetings. So November 12th and 26th, does that sound right? The second and last Wednesday of the month in November. And as was mentioned, there will be a refinement to these numbers that come back to council at those meetings, along with the other departments at that time.
Vice Deputy Mayor.
Okay, that's fine. I enjoyed the presentation. I just wondering if we're going to hear a lot of the same in November. Is this the new standard are all the other departments going to be presenting between now and then as well? Or is this just for police service? I'm just not quite understanding.
Sure, the CAO.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the invitation went out to the chief and through the chief to the board in order to present council a preview of the budget, so they had some awareness of the numbers that were coming in. I don't know that when we present in November, we see the level of detail that's been presented here tonight. So I think they took the opportunity to show you a bit more of the detail.
Bit of a heads up what's coming. To the chief, I just wondering, Chief, thanks for the presentation, Diane. And Chief, thanks for all the great work you do in our community and to the police force. The question I had was about the 29 officers. I understand the need here. I'm just wondering about you talked about one officer per 584 residents. We're actually 1 in 635, so we're still a little bit behind.
That's correct.
Is that a formula, or is it strictly just provincial average? Is that a kind of a moving target? As our population changes, that number will change, and provincially, is there any kind of a formula that's used, or is it just simply provincial average?
That's the provincial average through Stats Canada. So through you, Mr. Mayor.
Just make sure you bring the mic up to your.
Sorry. Yeah, that's the provincial average through Stats Canada. So right now we are at, you're correct in saying this year would be 1 for every 584 is the provincial average, and we're at 1 for every 635. We've always been a few behind, and that's acceptable, but it's been the same formula we've used in the last 6 years of my budgeting.
And I was interested to hear in the about 18,409, which was 1,326 more than counted in 2025. Is that right out of Stats Canada numbers? Is that where that came from?
That I got from the town.
Pardon me?
That number I got from the town.
From the town.
When we used it
Okay.
from Jim.
I was just pleased. I mean, I remember we were at 16 and 17. We were supposed to go to 20,000 by 2030. I didn't know where the 18,409 came from.
The CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, every year when we start the budget planning process, we take a look at the numbers where our population is, because it impacts a lot of different areas within the town of Saugeen Shores. And those numbers are the projections that we pulled from our development charges background study.
Okay, further questions or comments from members? Councilor Nowinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, to either chief, thank you for the report, or to our deputy mayor, thank you for the presentation. We're looking for 2 more officers. In a perfect world, actually it'd be more. But are the officers, and you really can't force this, but are you making an effort to make sure that the officers we have on staff are officers that reflect the population of Saugeen Shores? Do we have Saugeen First Nation officers? Do we have other officers that would reflect other minorities in the population? Just wondering.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Dubinsky, and through you, Mr. Mayor. That is a big concern for us when we are doing our hiring, to find members that reflect our community. And I'm happy to say that we have a member that just started online portion of the schooling a week and a half ago, and he's from Trinidad, and he will be representing a visible difference in our community as well, and brings with him a wealth of experience that way. So when we do our hiring, we do take that into big consideration for sure.
If I could just add also the male-female dynamic in the police service, the female representation, I believe it's 31% of the officers.
I think we're 34% right now for
30.
female officers, and there's a movement across the province right now to have 30% by the year 2030. So we're already at that, and we continue hopefully to maintain that. But one change can make a big difference when it's a smaller force.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the lines in the presentation is a key priority as outlined in the Saugeen Shores Corporate Strategic Plan endorsed by council is to facilitate and support sustainable community growth. We know we're having that, and it may have slowed down a bit, but it's there and it's going to continue. The sentence ends with, "This must include the safety of persons, property, and place." To me, this is an absolute necessity. And that's why in the past, I've said the police need all the help they can get. We need to be able to go to bed at night and say, we're safe. If we do have a problem, there's somebody there to take care of it. So, and the police will follow up. This is happening right now, as a matter of fact. And I hope that when this comes up at budget time, we don't have much control over this budget, but I hope we'll embrace it because it's trying to facilitate this, the same as the fire department is doing in this community. So I fully support the police, what they're doing, what they hope to do, and hopefully it all works out. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments or questions from members? Well, we do appreciate, as has already been said, both the deputy mayor and you, chief, coming in tonight and presenting us with this information ahead of the budget. It's helpful for us, frankly, to be able to get a little sense of it ahead of time, so council has a chance to sort of absorb what's coming, and because it's a lot that hits you at budget time. So it is much appreciated that you've done that. And you know, there's no question. It's you can't sugarcoat. It's a pretty significant budget increase, right? 10% budget increase layered on top of last year, which was also a pretty significant budget increase to the police service. So, you know, it's a lot of cash, and council's going to have to figure out how that gets absorbed into the broader picture. I would say that I think it would be a good idea for us to somehow have a conversation at some point about that cops to pop or police officer to population number, and just what the service level target we're looking at is, because it has, and the chief very kindly shared some data with me today, which I much appreciate, but we have actually been increasing our service level over the last 5 years, where we have more police officers per population in 2025 than we did in 2020. And we're moving in a direction of, you know, of having a higher level of service. So I think I think there does at some point need to be sort of a reckoning between the board and council about what is the service level that we're aiming for, and so that it can be consistent over time. Because really, as you've both pointed out quite correctly, most of the cost of this is personnel, right? Like those 2 police officers, it's an eight, I'm actually quite shocked 85% is as high as it is. I would have thought you'd be more like 90% people. Like it's always high. Like it's most of the business. So you add more people, that's where you're adding most of the expense. And that's the conversation I think we should have, because in my view, Saugeen Shores is easily the best served community in the entire region from a policing standpoint, certainly in Bruce County, by a long shot, and has been for a long time. We pay good money for that. Saugeen Shores taxpayers pay more money than our neighboring communities, but I'll defend that every day of the week, because we're getting a hell of a lot better service. Like we are getting really excellent service because we have a lot of police officers on the street. But we still have to, I think, have that conversation about, you know, what is the right number? And I think, and make sure that it's consistent over time, and that we're not, you know, because I think that, you know, comparing to that provincial number is a good thing to do, but taking that, you know, when you take the whole province-wide stat, it takes into account the big cities and everything, right? So it's not apples to apples really. So we need our own number, and I think we need to settle on what it is between us, so that we can both have we should be able to get good policing and also cost containment, right? So I think we need to talk about those things and come up with some line that works to keep the community safe and make sure we can afford the police service. So hopefully we can continue to have that conversation over the course of the budget and get to a good place on it. But again, you know, I really appreciate you guys coming in now so we can have those conversations and talk about those things. And as always, a strong support for the police service at council, and always will be. I'm quite certain of that. Did you have a comment, Councillor Halpin?
Thank you, Mayor. Just along that line, we do spend about 22 cents out of every tax dollar for our police. So it is a big ticket item.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, the chief.
Sorry, can I say one more thing? So normally in the past, we've had our officers, and it's been primarily frontline deployment. So we have our 4 platoons of 5. With all the changes to the Community Safety and Policing Act that came out April 1st of 2024, we had the need now with the such a high level of training that we're going to try to have our separate training officer as well. So that's one officer that won't increase every year by the rate of population. That's a training officer that will be assigned for the service. So that doesn't count for the frontline deployment, but it does count for our population to cop kind of ratios. So, and when we're doing these ratios, because it is a small number based on the provincial average, one officer can make a big difference as far as being with or without the average just by the change of one officer. So if we went with 28 this year, we would have been quite below the average. This year, we're just inching closer to being to the average, but it all depends on what the population goes with. So I definitely recognize the costs associated with the policing, but with all the requirements that are needed, we do have to strengthen other areas, and it's not just frontline patrol. So that's part of it. And another one we're looking at is also doing like a liaison officer as well, as far as with the needs to consult with everybody else and to do the community kind of engagement on a full-time basis. So those are some other driving forces that are increasing the numbers. But again, once those officers are put in place, that won't drive the frontline patrol every year. So that's my hope.
Yeah, well, no, thanks for that context. We appreciate that. Is there anything further? If not, then thank you very much to both of you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're on to reports of municipal officers. And the first one, the first one is introduction to development charges review, and we'll turn that over to the manager, planning and development.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm just up on the screen, and I'm going to really here to introduce Jacqueline Hall. She's with Hemson Consulting. She's been working with the town for many of these development charges background studies, but it's always good to get a reintroduction or at least a reminder about what are development charges. There's a lot of legislative and regulatory changes that Ms. Hall will highlight as well. But also to take the time about what the next steps are, because this process takes several months and will lead into 2026 as well. And we're going to look at things like the growth forecast. We're going to look at service levels. We just mentioned that with police services. You know, what are the eligible development charges for things like police services? And we're going to go through the process. We're not here to discuss the sort of the merits of that now, but just to highlight and educate council about what development charges are. With your permission, Mayor, Jackie would lead the presentation.
Yep, go right ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the introduction, Jay, and it's a pleasure to be before council this evening. As Jay mentioned, my name is Jackie Hall. I'm an associate partner with Hemson Consulting, and we've been retained to complete an update of the town's development charges background study. Really what I'd like to do today, there is quite a bit of content here. As Jay had indicated, DCs or development charges are quite the hot topic right now in the province of Ontario and, you know, truly across Canada. And so I appreciate I have a limited amount of time before council this evening. And so what I'd like to do is move quite swiftly through some of the technical requirements that I want to brief council on and really hone in on key decision points of council and what your role is through this process, as well as talking about potential policy options. Recognizing that we are in a challenging time right now with housing construction in the province, certainly that is something top of mind when we are preparing these studies. So just a little bit of background, many of you in the room are familiar with this, but a DC bylaw was brought forward in 2021 that is effectively kind of the overarching bylaw for many of the rates in the town. There was an amendment done in 2023, primarily related to indoor recreation services. And the goal of this update is effectively to repeal those existing bylaws and update the rates and also provide, based on new information and potentially change some of the policies that exist in the current bylaws to ensure that we're conforming and aligning with recent trends, but also changes that have happened to the Development Charges Act. So a bit of context, what are development charges? We're talking about them a lot right now, but just to give everyone a foundation is that they are fees that are imposed on development to pay for growth-related capital costs. The legislation, the Development Charges Act, is extremely prescriptive, the most prescriptive in Canada, or really North America, in terms of what we have to do to calculate these rates. And they're imposed on both residential and non-residential development. The idea is that it pays for new infrastructure and facilities in order to maintain service levels. So we can't use DCs to fund services at a rate that exceeds your existing or historic service level standards. We also have to consider eligible services under the legislation as well. And the underlying principle is that growth pays for growth, but we'll talk a little bit about how that doesn't always materialize in a couple of slides. Development charges are just one tool that municipalities can use to fund capital infrastructure. So there's certainly other options available to municipalities. You don't have to use DCs or development charges. You certainly could use things like property taxes, but that would obviously have a pretty significant impact to your tax base. So there are other tools as well, such as community benefits charges that can only be levied against high density development. So we're really seeing that tool primarily used in places around the Greater Toronto area where there's a lot of high residential development happening. We also, of course, have our parkland dedication and cash in lieu. And we can't double count between these revenue sources. So that certainly is something that we are extremely mindful of when we go through this process. There are also key pieces of infrastructure that we ask developers to pay for as part of their plans of subdivision. So that would be things like internal roads, sidewalks, streetlights, intersections, certain park elements. Those things are a local developer responsibility, and then the municipality assumes those assets once they are constructed. And as I mentioned, you certainly could rely on property taxes or your utility rates, which are your water, wastewater charges, in order to fund infrastructure. Typically, that's used to pay for either the statutory or non-statutory discounts or exemptions, and of course, any sort of operating impacts or asset management requirements as well. So this is really just kind of a bit of a deeper dive in terms of what some of these revenue tools require, but I'm going to go through these in the following slides. But the main key here is that these revenue tools do work together, and we certainly cannot double count between them. So the Development Charges Act, as I mentioned, extremely prescriptive piece of legislation. There has been some changes since the town did the last bylaw. One that's important is that the life of the Development Charges bylaw used to be 5 years. It's now 10. So you only have to go through this process now every 10 years. Prior to undertaking a bylaw, though, we have to complete a background study. So it's a massive 300-page document that details all the technical analysis that goes into the rate calculations. And then we also have to hold at least one public meeting in order to receive feedback on what is in that technical document and make adjustments to the bylaw as required. The bylaw itself is also appealable before the Ontario Land Tribunal. So as I mentioned, some of the changes that have happened to the Development Charges Act since the town passed its current bylaw really sits around what we call our statutory exemptions. So the town has no choice in these, you have to provide them. So there's now an exemption for affordable housing. This is prescribed by the province through an affordable housing bulletin for each municipality in terms of what that threshold is. There's exemptions for nonprofit housing, long-term care as well, that just came into effect in June. There are also discounts for rental housing. So based on the number of bedrooms, you get more of a discount if you have more bedrooms and less of a discount if you only have one or less. There's also exemptions for what you might have heard of being referred to as ARUs, additional residential units. Those are your secondary suites, your granny flats, your garden suites for both new and existing developments. So they're really trying to promote that gentle intensification across the province and by providing these exemptions from development charges. There's also an exemption for existing industrial buildings. The town currently has an exemption for all industrial uses, so that's not really at play, but if that was removed, at minimum, you have to provide an exemption for an expansion of an industrial use. And then municipal boards and boards of education are also exempt as well. A couple of other things to keep in mind. There's lots of technical things and administrative things that go into DCs now. So development charges are frozen at either site plan or zoning amendment. That's really to give developers more certainty around what they're paying. DCs are still paid at building permit, but they're effectively determined now at either site plan or zoning amendment if that's applicable to a development. There's also deferral payments for rental and institutional housing. So they're paid in 5-year installments. That helps with the pro formas for those projects and also the cash flow for those developers. There's certain amendments we can do now without the need for a background study. So removing indexing can happen at any time. We could reduce the DC rates at any time as well. And that doesn't require this formal process that I had just spoken about. Certainly, you can provide any exemption you want, but we always caution that that has an impact on your ability to collect revenues, and it has to be funded from something else. So if it's not going to be funded from DCs, typically sits on your property taxes. There's also reserve requirements. So it's not that you have to spend this money, but you at least have to allocate what's in the DC reserve funds, and you need to do 60% of what's in there every year as part of your annual treasury statement for our engineered services, which include water, wastewater, and roads. There are further amendments that we are expecting to the Development Charges Act this fall. There was the first round that happened in June. There was also a whole bunch that basically said these will come into effect once the regulations are passed. We know that the House is going to come back in mid-October, so we're expecting some things to happen probably within the next month. We will certainly keep staff up to date with this, and we'll be considering any changes that come forward as part of this process. So some of the potential changes we've heard and what we've seen through the consultation that's happened to date, and also some of the changes that have been proposed, include deferring all payments of DCs of residential for residential development into occupancy. There's also the methodology on how to calculate ineligible shares of projects. There's defining those local service requirements. So as I mentioned, developers have responsibility for certain projects. So there could be some guidelines around how we do that. There's also this introduction of maybe having broader categories for credit. So if a developer undertakes work on behalf of the municipality, they get a credit for that work, and how we kind of do that calculation might change a bit based on what the province puts out. There's also the potential to remove land as an eligible capital cost. So that will have a pretty substantial impact to development charge rates, as we know that the cost of land has been escalating quite rapidly in recent years. And there's also requirements for additional increased transparency and reporting on the DC reserves. So just a bit of a reminder, there is a hierarchy here. The county has certain services that are within their purview and their responsibility, so they can levy development charges for those. Other services that are within the town's wheelhouse, that is your responsibility. So things like services related to a highway, which is really roads, infrastructure, and public works, that's the town's. Water, wastewater, storm, parks and recreation, libraries, fire and police, we were just talking about police this evening, and waste diversion services. Now, the next couple slides, I'm just gonna go through very quickly because I appreciate the time limit here, but this schematic effectively gives you the outline of all the technical slides that follow this section. As I mentioned, because the legislation is so prescriptive, we have a number of steps we have to take to arrive at the rate. So we have to do a development forecast. We have to look at the location, amount, and type over a planning horizon. We then have to identify the capital needs. And we have to look at your 15-year average historic service level. So how much was open and available to residents over the last 15 years? And we can't fund infrastructure at a rate higher than that. We then also have to make a whole host of other reductions, including grants, if there's any sort of other contributions from other municipalities, if there's any benefit to the existing residents, we certainly have to adjust for that as well. And if there's available DC reserves, we take all of this into account when we do these calculations. And then once we do all of that, we arrive at the costs that are eligible for recovery through development charges. And then those are then allocated between either residential development, which is charged on a per unit basis, or the non-residential sector. So with that being said, I'm just going to kind of move through these slides because this is effectively just some more technical details here. But the key thing is that when you see the background study, ultimately on the capital side, we've picked on fire here. This is an outdated program, so please take this with a grain of salt. It's just as an example. What you're going to see is a list of projects, the timing of them, the cost, and then all of the adjustments we have to make under the legislation in order to arrive at our DC eligible share. And so the background study will outline all of this and will provide that roadmap in terms of how we arrive at our development charge rates. In terms of what DCs fund here in the town, this pie chart represents how the DCs are kind of split between the services. So I'll pick on police a little bit just because it's top of everyone's mind tonight. You can see that police services represent 2% of the overall development charges that we have here in the town. Not surprisingly, and this is very normal, we see this in basically every municipality we do this in, engineered services like water, wastewater, roads, public works, those take up the lion's share. It represents about 77% of your overall rate. And that's because those pieces of infrastructure are quite costly and we have to provide them in order to allow growth to occur. What you'll see on the far right-hand side of the slide is the rates, and they vary for residential development by unit types. So you can see a single and semi pays more than an apartment. The reason being is that a single and semi-detached house has a higher occupancy or a greater number of people living in it than say a one-bedroom apartment. And so we often base these charges on the occupancies of these units. It's a standard of doing these calculations. And so that's why you see those differences. On the non-residential side, very similar relationship, more of it's geared towards those engineered services. Other services like police and fire, they make up less of the charge. So the role of council, what we'll be asking you to do through this process is to approve those capital programs. So that list of projects that goes into the rates. We also have to consider area-specific development charges. You do not have to implement them, but we have to consider them. We have to consider whether or not to hold another public meeting. At minimum, we must do one. We've also built in consultation for meeting with the development industry, for example. And then on the policy side, you as council can make decisions in terms of your municipal objectives of whether or not we introduce the full charges, if they should be partial rates, if there should be a phase-in or delay of the effective date or more exemptions. But ultimately, those will have implications on your DC revenues, and any reduction will fall onto other revenue sources like property taxes. We have started a policy review for the town in terms of what we need to look at through this process. So certainly our goal here is to make sure that the exemptions that are in your current bylaw, if they are to remain, they make sense with, as I mentioned, the overall objectives of the town. So certainly there are some area-specific exemptions around the commercial core that we're going to be looking at through this process. The town's bylaw has a lot of policies related to affordable and attainable housing, which is great, but these were developed before the province introduced exemptions for attainable housing, for rental buildings. So certainly we want to make sure that we have to meet those minimum legislative requirements. Anything over and above that is at your discretion. There's other things we want to look at, like the rules around the conversion of vacant buildings and structures, how we define the rates themselves in terms of the definitions we use, and making sure that it aligns with the development we're going to see in Saugeen Shores, not only today, but in the future as well. And just to wrap up, I appreciate this is a lot of information in a short amount of time, but as Jay mentioned, this isn't a quick process. It's something that requires quite a bit of technical analysis and staff time in order to provide input to. And then because of the legislative requirements, we have to release things and consult on things within certain timeframes. So the background study we're going to propose to release in Q1 of 2026, so targeting February. That has to be released at least 60 days before the bylaw is passed. We then have to also release the draft bylaw as well. We have to advertise for a public meeting and then hold the meeting. Any sort of comments, questions, concerns, we get through that process, we take it back. If need be, we make adjustments to the rates. And then that adjusted or any revisions to the bylaw will then be brought forward to yourselves again for consideration. So we are looking spring of 2026 for that work. And then we have to prepare a notice of the bylaw passage. And we also have to have, there is a period of appeal as well. 40 days after the bylaw is passed, anyone from the public or the development industry can appeal the bylaw itself. So with that being said, I will open it up to any sort of questions of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. So there is a resolution. The council received the introduction to development charges review report for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Mayette, seconded by Grace. Questions or comments from members? Councillor Mayette and then Councillor Grace.
No.
Apologies, we cannot hear you. Okay.
I hear ambient noise. Some mic is picking up something.
Oh, mine's on.
Deputy Mayor came in crystal clear. I hear Councillor Mayette. It's solved.
Check. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, development charges. That's right. Two questions. First one is going from 5-year review to 10-year review. When you do that, I imagine there's always the chance that the expertise will atrophy over that period of time. Now, I do understand that you can do it sooner than the required 10-year or currently 5-year mark. How does that work for people like you who are in the development charges business? Are you worried that if all the development charges bylaws come due at the same time, it's going to, or is there a move afoot to stagger them somewhat? First question.
Yes, it's a great question. And through you, Mr. Mayor. So what we're actually seeing is that most municipalities are still following their 5-year cycles. The reason being is that master plans such as transportation master plans, active transportation master plans, if there's anything to do with infrastructure needs assessments like water, wastewater, as you mentioned, if things sit there for 10 years and if costs are escalating at a rate much higher than the construction price index, which we're allowed to index DC rates for, it's really problematic because municipalities are not able to collect enough revenue to fund this infrastructure to even allow growth to occur. So I would say it works quite well for small municipalities that maybe are not growing as swiftly, but we have still a number of clients that are looking at their bylaws every 3 or 5 years in order to align with the master plans, which is something we always recommend because it also makes your bylaws more defensible.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I hope that we continue to do that too, because I've been through, this is probably the 3rd, maybe 4th one since I've been on council. And every time it seems a little new, but I do have some retention of years gone by. Second question is, could you comment just briefly on, you mentioned water and wastewater. Can you mention how development charges are calculated for developments that are not connected to water and wastewater, so a rural development?
Yes, certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a great question. So if we have a development, let's say an existing rural property, which is on private well water or a private septic system, and then eventually the servicing becomes available and they have the opportunity to connect, typically that is dealt with through what we call a capital connection fee or a local improvement fee. It's a separate bylaw, but that fee is often set to be the same as what we have in the DC background study, because effectively what we've done through the process is to say there are existing units, we're actually sizing our system to have them connect in the future. So we set the rate in such a way that allows us to apply it both to new development and then also to existing developments that will connect in.
Councilor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jackie, for your presentation. My first question is about, it refers to the slide entitled New Framework for Growth-Related Capital. And under the Development Charges Act section, right at the very bottom, there's a button that says no more 10% discount. What does that refer to, please?
Yes, once again, through you, Mr. Mayor, the no more 10% discount, there's a bit of a history there. So back when the Development Charges Act 1997 was put into place, there was this issue or concern about municipalities gold plating infrastructure. So trying to create higher levels of standards for facilities such as indoor rec, libraries. And so what the province did through the legislation was to say, we are going to make all municipalities take 10% off of library, recreation, parks off the top. And so that is ineligible. Even if a project was 100% DC eligible, you could not fund the whole thing. You could only fund 90%. The legislation has continued to evolve since that time. And so because of this historic service level analysis we do, it effectively caps us at what your average level of service is in the municipality. So it avoids that gold plating issue that was originally intended to be addressed through that 10% discount. So that came out around 2017, 2018. So that's why we don't see it anymore. So no one in the province does the 10% discount because it's no longer legislated.
Okay, thank you. My other question actually arises from is a question that arose in the Municipal Heritage Committee discussion the other day, last week. And one of our members had attended a session where someone was presenting about the City of Toronto having a program to use development charges to support their arts, culture, and heritage. And so I guess I was wondering, is this something that, is there an exception for Toronto, or is this something that you think that we could possibly look at as well? I think Toronto takes 1% of their DCs and uses them for those purposes.
Yes, it's a great question. And so through you, Mr. Mayor, it's one that I actually took back because I realized that it was something that was inquired about prior to this presentation. And so the City of Toronto is actually one of our clients. We're working with them right now in their development charges study. So they do not use their development charges reserve fund to contribute to that heritage grant. That heritage grant was actually a standalone dedicated levy that they had used for that purpose. And then they actually were able to use community benefits charges to fund things like heritage, culture, and art. We cannot use development charges to fund for those services because it is not listed as eligible in the legislation. It's really unfortunate because certainly, we see it integrated in municipalities and it's such an important part. But the province has really come down and said, no, development charges cannot be used for things like heritage, art, or culture. But that being said, that community benefits charges, which unfortunately is really only a tool that's appropriate for urban municipalities with higher density development and lots of it, there's more flexibility. There's no limitation on the services, so they can use that. So certainly the City of Toronto has looked at doing that for the purposes of heritage funding, and perhaps maybe that was the reference, was the CBCs instead of the development charges.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? We'll come to the Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. These might be questions for Jay or perhaps Director Pauly. Very specific mention was made of a bulletin from the province about affordable housing that was Saugeen Shores specific. Can I make a request that that document be provided to council so we can see what the province is saying that affects our community? So that's not really a question, it's just an ask, because it was mentioned that there is a document. The question that I really have is, will the development charges review include, and it was mentioned about the transparency of the reserves and that sort of thing. Will the development charges review include an assessment and a statement to council and to the public about the values that have already been collected and potentially how they've been used? Because, you know, we have collected some funds. I'm just curious what that dollar value is, and I'm assuming we haven't allocated all of the funds yet, but it would be nice to know, you know, just how some of the flow through has happened, which matches previous development charges bylaws. So I don't know if that's a question for the manager, for the director, but will that be part of the review, or is that something that we can have provided to council perhaps during the business planning meetings?
Yeah, the manager of development services.
I think it's straightforward enough. Yes, certainly we intend to provide information on a range of information, not just on the current process, but our past collections, how our reserves are, the balance they are, how they've been allocated, also how our policies have affected and to be able to inform council if they want to either continue or expand or otherwise change the implementation of the bylaw. So we intend to do that. I would say that's still a new year question, but for the business plan, we can provide information on the reserve balances and how they've been allocated over the last the life of this bylaw, at least since the 2021 bylaw.
Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Development charges are a double-edged sword because they do contribute to the community, and as you see, but development charges can also be a hindrance on development. Like it is an expense that people have to pay, and it is an expense that keeps growing. Since we're using the police for an example, if we're spending 22 cents on every dollar for the police, we're also spending a portion of our DC charges on the police. So, you know, that 22 cents on the dollar isn't the whole story for the police department. My kind of comment is I'm looking forward to, during the process of this, of council being able to look at the existing exemptions and discounts and everything that we give for our development charges right now. And I think it's time for a good little review of those and look at those as well. And we can use those to encourage development. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation, Jackie. I'm just wondering, you talk about DC's paying for growth-related costs, and then we need to identify capital needs as council. It's fair to assume that the 10-year capital forecast, the 10-year plan we put together, that when we talk about growth-related projects, will a fair number of the projects in that 10-year plan be flushed out and the determination made that a lot of those are related to growth? And who does that? How does that process work?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So certainly through this process, and as I alluded to, there is quite a bit of staff information and staff time required to feed into this process. So what we're actually doing right now is we're hosting a series of meetings with the various departments that have DC eligible projects to review that 10-year capital forecast and to review the list of projects to say, okay, we'd like to understand exactly what is within the scope of this work. Is there a growth-related component that is eligible for funding through development charges? Is it fully eligible, or perhaps is only a portion of that project eligible? So as we move through this process and we continue to have those meetings with the departments, we will be compiling that list of capital projects that identifies, here is the project, the timing, the cost in current day dollars, and the share that we feel is eligible and defensible to recover through development charges. And then that will be brought forward as part of the background study and brought forward to council as well for consideration.
And just as a follow-up, so projects that are not currently in that 10-year plan, is that something that this council have to, I guess, make that decision at budget time, whether projects get added or not? And I'm thinking about, I'm just going to throw out a project idea, is a third ice pad, for example. In minor hockey registration's gone up 25% since the last report, development charge bylaws was prepared 5 years ago. It's gone from 5,600 up to over 700 this year. So over 20% increase. And we talk about DCs paying for gross related costs. If council made the determination, haven't yet, they, deem the need for a third ice pad, waiting for the recreation master plan, I think. So if council decided that yes, a third ice pad was needed in this community, and registrations have gone up 25%, is that where the percentage comes in terms of what percentage DCs would pay for from a growth related perspective? If minor hockey, from our population's grown, minor hockey numbers have grown. Is that part of the calculation?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, and perhaps it would help if I maybe clarified, the 10-year capital forecast is just one input to the DC study as well. So we do also look at if there's anything else that has been identified through various master plans, staff reports, even if they're preliminary in nature. Anything we put in the background study, though, we do want to have some sort of support for, if at all possible. So going to your example of seeing that we know there's pressure to continue to provide additional arenas in the town. Perhaps we don't have the Parks and Rec master plan just yet. What we often do is to say, we know this is coming, so we will put in a provision for additional arena space, something along those lines. And then we look at if there's preliminary information from the master plans, we certainly pull that in to help inform that allocation. So is that a demolishing of an existing arena and then doubling it in size? Are we doing an addition? All of those things get considered in the calculation itself. I would caution, because we can't increase the town's service level above your historic standard, we're capped. So oftentimes, especially with large indoor recreation projects, we get capped at this historic service level. So we only see, even though the project itself could be fully DC eligible or multiple projects could be funded from development charges, if we hit that cap, we can only recover that maximum. So that will also be laid out in the study, and we'll explain that as well as we get through that process, but it's still early days. We haven't done all those calculations yet.
Okay, just as a quick follow-up, the question for Kristen Schreids, when is the recreation master plan due to be completed? Because there's stuff in there that's going to be pretty important for development charges. What's the completion date?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question. The consultant has completed the site visits in July, and we had 2 user group meetings, both for sports field and for arena user group. So we anticipate that the report should be back to council in Q4.
Back to council when, sorry? Q4 this year. Okay, 2025. And development charges bylaw will be presented to council, the findings when again?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the background study will be released in February, so Q1 2026, but the bylaw won't be passed until the spring of 2026. So that will also give us additional time if there's some changes that happen through that master plan process that we can incorporate before the bylaw is passed.
Okay. Further questions or comments from members? I was just looking at page 9 of your presentation, and all the potential changes to the DCA to the act that are pending. And I just wonder, so in the context of this process that we're about to go through, we get partway through this process and then the legislature decides to change a whole bunch of rules in the DCA, which is not, not unheard of. I mean, the legislature seems to keep doing this. It is a thing that has derailed in many ways our official plan processes, certainly at the county over the last while, where you get down a path, the province changes everything, and then you have to start again. So how do you envision handling that as part of this process? Like, will we have to, if this all happens, will we have to stop and start again, or can you keep going? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, it's a great question, Mr. Mayor, and something that we've been talking about with staff through this process. So we've actually set the project timeline to kind of preemptively anticipate these changes coming forward in the fall. That's why we wanted to bring the bylaw forward for approval in the spring, to give us that time to make adjustments if need be. Also, historically, with changes to the Development Charges Act, there have also always been transition periods. So we do certainly recognize that that is something that might happen through this process. The other thing that is on our side is that we have a list of potential changes. So we are very cognizant of where this will hit the study potentially and how that will impact us. I've been doing development charges for 11 years now, and there's been quite a few changes in the past decade or so. And we've never done full pens down on a study because of the changes. We've certainly had to, maybe pivot a little bit, run some additional analysis to inform council of what the impacts are. But I don't foresee us necessarily pens down on the project unless something out of our control by the province happens, but that would occur across the board.
Okay, that's good to hear. And I'm particularly eager to hear how our current methodology with respect to affordable housing aligns with all the changes the province has made, and bringing that into alignment. That to me is going to be, it's because there's been so many changes from the province in that category. And as you say, Saugeen Shores struck out early and did a lot of things. So that's one piece of your work that I'm looking forward to seeing how the two line up. And I guess the only other question I had is, are you hearing anything like, so that first one, deferred payment, the first thing that the province is considering around DCA amendments, deferred payment of residential DCs until occupancy. Are you hearing anything more from the province about the exact timing of that? Are they considering changes to require payment prior to receiving occupancy? Or are they considering not collecting DCs until the premises is occupied? Are you hearing anything more about that?
Yes, it's a great question, Mr. Mayor. So there are a number of organizations here in Ontario, the Municipal Finance Officers Association, AMO, that have pointed out some challenges with this deferral policy. Especially, there are a number of our clients that don't even have occupancy permits. So how the heck are you supposed to track these things and actually collect the DC revenue? So we are expecting that one. We feel pretty confident that this will come into place. The province of British Columbia actually just did this as well as part of their development charge regime, is to defer DCs to occupancy. So we're seeing it nationally. And so certainly what we're hoping is that there will be some provisions in there to protect municipalities from folks not paying development charges and reducing that administrative burden. Because in order to track this and then potentially, put liens on properties or recover unpaid DCs as part of the tax roll, or putting it as a lien against a property, that's quite a bit of work on municipal staff. So there's been some talk about surety bonds and all these kind of wonderful things. So unfortunately, I don't have 100% a clear sense. I think we're going to know within the next month, but there's been some really good comments coming out of MFOA and AMO specifically around this issue that we're really hoping the province is considering.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that. All right, if there's nothing further from members, thank you for the presentation. You've heard the recommendation. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. All right, so now we're on to 9.2, our water and wastewater financial plan, and the Director of Operations.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. The requirement for water and wastewater financial plans is one of the building blocks of the province's drinking water licensing program. Preparation of the financial plan, written on the basis of sound asset management principles, ensures a sustainable funding stream to operate and maintain and upgrade the system as necessary. The Water and Wastewater Master Plan update and subsequent financial plan update are also important components of the town's business planning process. I won't go through my staff report in detail. Rather, I will introduce Ryan DeVries of BM Ross, who's prepared a short summary presentation.
I'm gonna grab my clicker. Great. Thank you, and thanks for having me. My name is Ryan DeVries. I work at BM Ross and was retained by the town to assist with the water and wastewater financial plan updates. So I'll work my way through it relatively quickly. Financial plan for the water system is really driven by Ontario Regulation 453. A financial plan for the wastewater system, there's no similar regulation requiring it, but one was completed as a companion to the water plan and really just recognizing the benefit of it. The last plan for the water system was done for the period 2019 to 2027. This plan period covers 2026 to 2031. And that plan timing is linked to the municipal drinking water license renewal. The water system renewal application is required by September 18, 2025. And that application must include a resolution by council adopting a plan for that plan period. So for those who've had their nighttime coffee, you'll realize that September 18 was last week. The town has already submitted that application, but with a note that this resolution would be coming. So that plan period, 2026 to 2031, is really defined by the Ontario Regulation 453. It has to be for at least 6 years, and the first year has to be in the year in which your license expires. It's important to know, I get a question quite often about whether you're fixed to that plan for the next 6 years. You're not. The ministry requires that you have a plan. They want to see the plan, but they're not going to hold you to sticking to it. They recognize things come up over those 6 years that might change things. Bit of background, you have roughly 6,500 customer connections. That's not people, that's how many connections you have to the drinking water system. The net book value of the drinking water system is just under 40 million. But if you were to replace it today, it would be closer to 140. The average life expectancy of all of the drinking water system assets is 70 years. The average weighted remaining life of those assets is 41 years. And you're currently setting aside money on the water system side of things for a rate of replacement of around 45 years. So that's a good thing there that that 41 and 45 are pretty close together. That's what you're looking for. Looking at historical increases, 2021, 2022 saw 6% rate increases. 2023 was 4%. 2024 was 3%, and then just this year was 4.3. The whole plan sort of boils down into these numbers right here. You're on your water system, you're generating revenue of 5.3 million per year. But you have a cost to operate the water system of around 1.9 million. You have an amortization expense that's more of a theoretical number to demonstrate what depreciation is on the system of 850,000 per year. There's some debt at 2 million, but you also have reserves of around 1.5 million. So then in order to create a plan, there's a number of assumptions that need to be made.
Some of the major assumptions here, the operating cost projections match the projections that the town has used in their business plan. We did assume residential growth at 1.8%. That matches the county's good growth forecast. And then reserves were assumed to accumulate interest at 2%. There was just under 36 mil in capital upgrades that were factored into the plan over that 2026 to 2031 period. And then revenue was based on the budgeted 2025 amount. What is the goal here? In broad terms, to develop a cost recovery plan to ensure adequate funding to operate, maintain, and replace infrastructure moving forward. But then more specifically, there's a couple of kind of subsequent goals here. We want to continue to fund annual amortization. We wanted to maintain positive reserves throughout the plan period. And then recognizing that your current rate of replacement is 45 years. That's kind of the real driver for the rate increase, which through several different iterations and discussions with staff, we reached 4.7% to maintain by 2031 that rate of replacement of 45 years. So then on the wastewater side of things, similar 6,500 customer connections. Net book value on the wastewater assets is just over 30 million. Replacement cost of all those assets today would be 131. Average life expectancy, you're down to 59 years here. Just a difference of maybe material or something like that. And then the wastewater system is on average a little bit older, so 26 years remaining life. Current rate of replacement of 79 years. Historically, 2021 through 2023, 8% rate increases. 2024 was 3.5, and then just this year was 4.2. So revenue being generated on the wastewater side of things, 6.2 million. Costs 2.4 to operate. Amortization of around 920,000. There's a little bit of debt, not much. It should be gone by the end of this year. And reserves are at 7.5 mil. So similar assumptions moving forward for the 2026 to 2031 period. But in this case, there's just under 48 million planned for capital upgrades over that period. The goal is the same as on the water side. But then looking at kind of the driver here on the wastewater side, we aim to achieve a similar rate of replacement as what's being done on the water side. So 45 years by 2031. And in order to do that would require a 2.5% per year increase. So that's what I got for you, but I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. There is a recommendation that council approve the water and wastewater financial plan 2026 to 2030 prepared by BM Ross and Associates Limited dated August 2025, and the council directs staff to submit the financial plan to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing as required by OREG 453-07 financial plans, and the council directs staff to submit this council resolution approving the financial plan to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks as required by the Safe Drinking Water Act. Is there a mover and seconder? The resolution, Halpin and the Deputy Mayor, questions or comments? Councilor Grace and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ryan and Matt. Just one question, and that's about it came to my mind when you were talking about wastewater and the life expectancy statistics that are here. We are planning upgrades at the Southampton wastewater treatment plant, received a big grant to assist with that. Do these life expectancy statistics include those planned upgrades?
So the numbers that I showed you about the average current life expectancy and remaining life expectancy, they do not factor that in because those assets don't exist yet. But when aiming for that 45-year replacement, it is factored into there.
The Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Two questions. One relates to water, and in the information that you provided, it represents that the reserve balance is expected to be $1.6 million at the end of 2025, but would rise to 10 million by the end of 2031. Is that escalation and the rate that you're proposing, is that reflective of a 45-year window rather than a 70-year window? Or are we looking at a 70-year window that we are down to 45 years in that lifespan? It seems like a big jump in reserves, but it's got to relate to that 45-year projection. Is that correct?
That is correct, yep. I don't know if you need me to go into more detail than that, but yes, because you're aggressively targeting a 45-year is why it seems like it's going up.
And is the 45 years, are you looking at from this point forward, or from when the asset was first introduced to Saugeen Shores, it's 45 years from that point?
The goal is to target by 2031 that you would be generating enough revenue after subtracting your expenses, that amount going into either your capital program or your reserves would be replacing your infrastructure at 45 years.
Thank you. The other question is, it's on the wastewater. 4.2 in your report says something along the lines of, and I just want you to just explain it to me perhaps a little bit differently. It says that revenue is 162% greater than operating costs. I'm assuming this also has something to do with loading value into the reserve to hit this 45-year mark for replacement. Is that what you mean by revenue being 162% greater than the operating costs?
So that is really just how much revenue is coming into the system for the wastewater side compared to the operation expense of the system. So the 2.4 million is how much your operating expenses are for your operators, staff, all of that sums into that 2.4 mil. So that's where the one divided by the other is 162%. But really the difference of that is what you use to either grow your reserves or use to put towards your capital program.
Further questions or comments from members? The Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yep, thank you for your presentation. I just, when we speak of, let's go back here, the water financial plan, and I think it looks like the rates increased per year in 2021, 6%, and we're at 4.3% now. And wastewater was 8.88, dating back a few years ago, and now this year, I think you're like 4.2. In your plan, maybe I missed it, but are you? Is there a recommendation in your report for 2026? What the recommendation is, or does that come from staff later?
I believe the reports would be used to inform staff's business plan and ultimately rate selection. But the assumption in the reports is that the suggested rates would be effective as of 2026.
It's good to see the 8% down to 4.2, which is a lot more reasonable for our ratepayers, and that's good to see. With your calculation, I'll just get to the page 8. You talk about residential growth assumed at 1.8%. Is that residential growth? Are you speaking of residential growth in terms of 1.8% growth per household, like per resident, like for actual house, or is that the residential growth population wise? Is it for a resident?
So in this case, you have 6,500 roughly connections. So you would grow those connections by 1.8%
Yes,
per year.
population, it's per residence, and yeah. We'd heard a number of 7% increase with our police forecasting go to 1,326. So I was thinking we'd make the comparison between that and this, but they're two different things because you're per resident and this is per total population. So thanks for that clarification.
Is that it? Are you done, Mike, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, are there further questions or comments? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. These are big numbers, but we are putting in looking at this, quit moving around. On the wastewater side, we're making almost 3.8 million into reserves each year. And on and about 3.3 on the water side. So we are salting the money away. Do you see after the next 5 years, will there be an easing on this? Like you talk about, there was a historic underinvestment and everything like that. Do the ratepayers look forward to, like, in the next 5 years or something like that, an easing on these increases? Because, we have to look after this, it absolutely has to be done. And I think we do a good job doing it, but is there light at the end of the tunnel? That we can get this into avoiding constant increases.
I sure wish that I could promise that there would be, but I think one of the major drivers here is your operation expenses increased by inflation or sometimes greater than that every year. So to have some sort of hope that would stop, I don't think is realistic.
But it's a good question. It costs. This is an expensive system to operate, and actually, if you look at that, the recommendations for waste in particular, you're recommending a 2.5% increase per year, which is it's just about as low as it could possibly be, I think, because inflation is going to be, hardly ever lower than that. I wouldn't think so. That's a pretty good number, I should think, for the ratepayer, 2.5%. But I think bottom line is that, at least speaking just for myself, but I suspect most members will agree that we're going to go to the experts. They're going to tell us what we need to maintain clean drinking water, and that's the money we're going to spend, whatever the number is, because it's worth every penny. So, do you have a comment to that? Yeah.
Well, just on the wastewater side of things, the 2.5% is low, but you benefited from receiving that grant money, and had you not, that number would be significantly higher. So,
do you have any sense of what it would have been if we hadn't?
Probably 2.5% to 3.5% higher.
So could have been 5
to 6,
even 6%.
Yeah.
I have heard that question from people with that grant. What does that mean for my bill? So there's your answer. If it hadn't been for that $18 million, you'd have been seeing 5 or 6% a year increases, and now you're looking at 2.5%, which is barely inflation. So there you go. Further questions or comments? Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification. On page 4 of the presentation, this is in background, it says planned timing is linked to MDW license renewal. Renewal application is required by September 18th. Has that renewal application been put in?
You want to take that one?
Yes, thank you. And through your worship, we did submit an application with the indication that the resolution of council for the financial plan is pending. That is commonly done.
Okay, thank you for that. And I see the next line says it has to be supported by a resolution of council adopting a plan for the 5-year period, 6-year period. Is that what we're doing tonight right now? Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Councilor Matt.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And through you, and thanks for the presentation. I appreciate that it's flush with details and talks about our liquid assets. But when, speaking of liquid assets, when I'm not a accountant, but it seems to me we're carrying debt while we have reserves. Why wouldn't we pay off the debt if we've got, like in the case of the wastewater, we've got 800,000 in debt and we've got 7.5 million in reserves. Would it not make sense to wipe that off? No pun intended.
I suppose I can't answer that because I'm only dealing with the numbers provided to me, but I will say that with the capital program that you have coming up, you probably will be eating into a fair bit of those reserves.
Okay. Oh, the treasurer.
Thank you for the question. It is fixed debt, so we don't have the option of prepayment. It does expire within the next few years, though.
Okay, are there further questions or comments? If not, you've heard the recommendation. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to 9.3, debt planning, and the treasurer shouldn't have been so quick to sit back down because he's got to get right back up, the treasurer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report outlines the town's proposed debt plan over the next 5 years, specifically addressing the projects recommended for debt funding and the timing of that debt. This responsible use of debt allows the town to properly fund the infrastructure required to maintain services. Debt financing on these projects will allow appropriate cash flow to fund all projects in the town's 10-year capital plan. As part of that plan, the town's future infrastructure special levy will give the fiscal capacity to pay for the annual debt payments associated with the loans. The report recommends changing the funding source for 2 previously approved projects based on the town's strong cash position, giving it the opportunity to defer some debt further into the future. Of note is that with this debt plan, at its peak, the town is projected to use only 44% of its provincially mandated annual repayment limit, with significant room remaining for other priorities or emergencies. This represents a significant improvement from the projections in the 2025 business plan, mostly due to the significant provincial funding received for upgrades to the Southampton Water Pollution Control Plant. This debt plan will be monitored on an annual basis to ensure that cash reserves are properly maintained, that project costs are appropriate, that debts are scaling appropriately with revenue, and that the interest rate environment remains reasonable. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. So there is a resolution that council approve Innovation Park Project 810-86200 be funded through future capital reserve instead of debt financing, and the council approve Port Elgin Harbor Street Pump Station Generator Fuel Supply and Electrical Project 410-86738 be funded through wastewater reserve instead of debt funding. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Halpin. Discussion, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Daniel, thanks for your response today. I sent you a question asked about the balance in the future capital reserve. And I was interested also to know why Innovation Park, you'd want to fund it through future capital reserve versus your alternate method, borrowing through the province. And I just thought that your response was really good. And I thought that council might want to hear what you said, because number one, the deficit position that we're into with our future capital reserve, and secondly, in terms of funding it through the reserve versus via the province, why that's a good thing. I made the assumption it's probably because we're getting a lower interest rate borrowing from ourselves, but I just think it's a good, 2 good questions that maybe council should hear about.
Yeah. So the future capital projects reserve in the 2025 business plan was forecasted to be in deficit. This will push that deficit further, but it's offset by positive balances in other reserves, such as the wastewater reserve, the tax stabilization reserve, amongst others. So this internal borrowing was planned to ensure that projects could move forward in a timely manner, and over time will be funded by increases in the future infrastructure special levy. The interest rate on an internal loan is lower than what would be available on external loans. Right now in our bank account, we're receiving 3.35% interest versus the 4.7% that would be available through Infrastructure Ontario on a 30-year loan. In addition, the actual balance of our future capital reserve, the deficit that it's projected to be in, depends on the timing of capital expenditures. And with projects carrying over, it's hard to say exactly what that balance would be.
And I just thought that would be a good thing for share with all the council. Mr. Mayor, I thought the questions I asked were very well responded to, Daniel. I wanted to thank you, and I understand it a lot better now, so thanks.
Thank you. Further, so we'll get Councillor Halpin and then the Deputy Mayor and then Mayette.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So we're taking money for Innovation Park, and that money will be repaid through taxation. Is that correct?
Through the future infrastructure special levy alongside taxation, yeah.
Thank you. And then the Harbor Street pumping station, we're not really borrowing money. We're just taking $1 million out of the reserves and paying for that, so that it's not borrowed money.
That's correct. We have the reserves in place, and so for a project of that magnitude, we have other projects that are funded by wastewater reserve, and that's the recommended funding.
Thank you. Those seem like good policies. I just wanted to comment on debt-funded projects coming up from 25 to 29. There's a big list there, big numbers that we're going to have to come up with. But I just wanted to comment on the Port Elgin Harbor dock replacement, and that I think, you know, if you look at our tourist camps pay for themselves. So whatever money comes from the tourist camp they fund themselves. I think it's important for things like the harbor to also fund itself as well and not come from general taxation. It's a bit of a luxury item for people, and that should pay for itself.
Yes, and I can be corrected by the treasurer, but it does. The harbor is a self-sustained operation within the municipal budget. Am I correct about that?
That's correct. And when we do a loan for a harbor project, we do set it up in a way that ensures that those funds are coming back through the harbor.
Okay, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I had that question too, and I think I was noting on the list that you provided, it does indicate debt-funded projects in brackets tax-funded. I was confused because it's user-funded within the budget for the harbor.
Yeah.
The Innovation Park number that's here, it relates to something that's already happened, correct? It's not new spending. We're just making an amendment or an adjustment to something that we've already processed through. It's not new spending, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and my other question is, there's something on here, and it's not till 2028, but it's about the waterfront design recommendation. I'll just take advantage. I think, are we expecting a consultant? I don't know if a consultant got hired. This was in this year's budget to do a design. Is that something that's coming? Not unlike the question about the recreation stuff?
The CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, that work has been updated in the quarterly reports is on hold until we have some advancement on the CCV project at the waterfront.
Thank you. And we can watch for more details. You've got some numbers here which relate something to your way of keeping track of things. But we can look forward to more information about some of these items when we get into business planning, that some of the titles will show up in those meetings as well, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question was around the Innovation Park as well. And I think it was answered that it's work that's already completed, because I do spend a bit of time in there, and it looks pretty complete with generator and all that. So was that like the hydro pole installation?
It's the entire project, so all the roadways, water, sewer.
Okay, further questions or comments? I think it's just a good news story. The result has been better than the projections. We're borrowing less than we anticipated. And so that's a positive thing. And I think preserving as much of that debt capacity as we can within the context of the overall 10-year capital and operating plan is a good thing. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world at the moment and a lot of potential additional costs that we might face as a result of the way things are going. So I think it's prudent financial planning to preserve as much of our debt capacity as we possibly can. So it's a positive report, and I appreciate your work on it. So there's a resolution. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, now we're on to 9.4, Bruce Gray Bulls Delegation Follow-Up and the Director of Community Services.
Great, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. So representatives of the Bruce Gray Bulls presented a delegation to council on September 8th, outlining your request for the organization to be deemed eligible to be billed at the subsidized minor sports rate for the duration of the 2-year A-Zone play project that is beginning, our pilot project that is beginning this season. 2 main changes to minor hockey are occurring this year: zone play and open borders. Zone play took multiple minor hockey associations and grouped them together into 6 zones for rep hockey. Saugeen Shores is part of Zone 2, along with Erin Elderslie and Chatsworth. The House League or the local league hockey remains with each municipality or local organization. The second change impacting minor hockey is open borders. So this permits movement between organizations, and parents and kids can choose where they want to play minor hockey. And really this removes the residency-based restrictions that were previously in place. So both of these changes, the zone play and open borders, increase the chance and likelihood that non-Saugeen Shores residents will be registered with either the Bulls or Saugeen Shores minor hockey. Up to now, there was no awareness of this occurring with our minor hockey program. A link to the current fees and charges bylaw and the 2025 rates associated with minor hockey are included in the report for council awareness. Saugeen Shores does not have an out-of-town rate included in the existing fees and charges bylaw. It is noted that Saugeen Shores is one of the highest primetime rates in the surrounding area, but it also offers the highest subsidized minor sports rate. The subsidized rate for minor sports primetime in Saugeen Shores is just over 26% reduction from the primetime rate. So our primetime rate is just over $194 per hour, and the minor sports primetime rate is just over $143 per hour. Of those that we have the information for, the average of other municipal minor sports subsidy is 19%. So we're well above that. We reached out to other municipalities in southwestern Ontario to inquire what they were doing with their rates and requests from zone organizations. 5 out of the 6 that responded is charging the zone teams their same rate as their minor sports subsidized rate. Each municipality and their fees and charges are different. Appendix B in the report outlines comparable rates of local municipalities. Of those included, some municipalities have a built-in rate for out-of-town minor sports prime time. These are for municipalities that have regular ice users or seasonal contracts with organizations that book ice on a regular basis. For example, Erin Elderslie has youth out-of-town rate, and their frequent users of that is the Highlander program, so an elite program, or Chatsworth minor hockey. Another example is South Bruce Peninsula. They have an out-of-town rate, minor sports rate built into their fees and charges, and their regular users of that is Shallow Lake and Bruce Peninsula. So when arriving at a recommendation, in response to the delegation, 4 main considerations were taken into account. The response from other municipalities, so again, 5 out of 6 provide the ice at the youth subsidized rate in their municipalities for zone play. Secondly, that 63% of the players registered with the Bulls are residents of Saugeen Shores. The third consideration was providing the Bulls with subsidized rate does not decrease our revenue. It actually increases because they are picking up some of our vacant ice with their 13 hours here at the Plex and Coliseum. And lastly, that this is a 2-year pilot program, and over the 2 years, it will provide us, other municipalities, and the Bulls time to collect data and truly understand the impact on our local minor sports program and more permanent approach to ice fees if the program continues. So perhaps Saugeen Shores would implement an out-of-town ice rate if the program continues. So the Bulls currently have 13 hours of ice in Saugeen Shores and 37 hours in 4 other municipalities. At the time of preparing this report, it was understood that this allocation is providing them with the ice time required to run a successful program. Conversations between Saugeen Shores Minor Hockey, the Bulls, and town staff have been very positive, and it's nice to see that all parties are continuing to work together. We want to ensure that additional burden is not placed on our facility booking staff or operators at the arenas, and we appreciate both groups making sure this does not occur. So I wanted to also just take a moment to explain the rationale for including Saugeen Shores Minor Hockey in the recommendation. As mentioned before, with the open borders change, there is an increased chance or likelihood that non-residents of Saugeen Shores will be registered with our minor hockey program. I wanted to be sure that this report included minor hockey, just in case we learned that non-residents were registered. At the time of preparing this report, 100% of their participants are Saugeen Shores residents. That could change over the course of this year or perhaps next year as well. So the next steps outlined in the report, communication back to the Bulls and to minor hockey for verification of the resolution of council tonight, continue to work with the arena user groups to prioritize youth organizations, monitor the trends and registration data, ice utilization of both minor hockey and the Bulls. We have a 2026 division highlight for an ice allocation policy to be approved by council, and then a summary report following the 2-year pilot. So the recommendation before you this evening is that council approve the minor sports primetime and non-primetime rates for the 25 to 27 pilot project for the Bruce Gray Bulls and the Saugeen Shores Minor Hockey Association. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So you've just heard the recommendation from the director. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councilor Manette, second by Councilor Halpin. Questions or comments? Councilor Halpin.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the report. That certainly is a change, the open borders, because I mean, it used to be, there was no opportunity to, it had to be a very good reason why you had to be in a different community. And whereas some people may not like that idea, for those that don't, just a reminder that when people come here to play hockey, they also visit our main street, they shop, they support local restaurants and businesses and everything like that. So it seems to me that this is helping us because they're taking more ice time. They're taking vacant spots, so it isn't at anyone's expense. So I think this is a great thing.
Thank you. Further comments from members? Councilor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I echo Councilor Halpin's remarks as well. However, through you, I'd like to ask Kristen a question here. We've given this ice time to a preferred higher talented group, so-called the Gray Bulls. Does this impact in any way the House League rates and ice time that they would need to continue House League season?
Thank you for the question. And through you, at this time, minor hockey has not indicated that they will struggle to provide adequate ice time for the House League or local league program. The two groups have worked very well together. I can't remember out of the 13 hours what the allocation was from minor hockey and our vacant ice, but they have picked up some vacant ice, in particular early mornings, which is great.
Thank you. And one other question, does this affect in any way girls hockey?
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it does not. They belong to a different organization. So the OWHA, and they are not impacted by this change.
Okay, so everybody has access to preferred times and other times as well. It becomes an even Steven sort of thing.
Thank you for the question. And through you, right now, all groups appear to be happy, which is good. So registration numbers, I'm sure will increase and decline over the next little while. And as indicated in the report, we'll just continue to work with them and also just to monitor the trends and the utilization at both facilities.
Okay, thank you very much, Kristen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, Do you have an expectation of how much opportunity there'll be for public skating this year? Is that, and I appreciate the use of ice early in the morning, that's great. But do you have, I know you're working on the schedule, but do you have a sense of how often that will be available? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it will be similar to last year.
Thank you. Further comments? I think, and it's a good report, and everything's changing, so we'll see how things play out here. But I think a couple of core principles, right? One is that Saugeen Shores ice, it's a finite resource, and it should be made available first and foremost to the taxpayers of Saugeen Shores and their kids. And secondly, that the taxpayers of Saugeen Shores should be subsidizing primarily young people from Saugeen Shores and not young people from other places. To me, those are things that we should attempt to achieve for the taxpayer. So I think that what we want to do is monitor going forward here. You know, if we start to see larger numbers of young people coming in from other communities playing either in our house leagues or in part of the Bulls, I think we need to monitor that and decide, because we don't, as Councillor Davinsky was kind of heading toward there, what we don't want to see is in this year's ice allocations or in future ones that minor hockey is being disadvantaged, that young people from Saugeen Shores aren't able to access minor hockey, which is being given preferentially to kids from Chatsworth and Aaron Eldesley, right? I think it's the people of Saugeen Shores pay for these ice pads and they should have primary access to them. So I think, and also it's with the subsidy, right? We don't want to get to the point where we're subsidizing a lot of kids from other communities. The people of Saugeen Shores are paying their taxes so that young people from our community can play hockey in our community or skate or whatever, figure skate or whatever. So I think we need to achieve those things. So I hope as we do this, that you'll come back to council and, you know, maybe even next year, it might be a good idea next year to come back and report on this partway through and say, well, how is this going and how does this look? Because I think we should attempt to achieve those core principles. So anyway, but for now, it's a good report and we'll see how it breaks down. All right, as if there's nothing further, then I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay, so now we are on to 9.5, the battle event delegation follow-up and the director.
Thank you. So on June 23rd, representatives from the Port Elgin and Southampton Curling Club presented a delegation to council announcing the battle event that's taking place at the Plex, September 25th to the 27th. This is another exciting curling event that will take place similar to the Tankard and Scotties that called the Plex their home a few years ago. It was announced that Rachel Holman and Brad Jacobs will take part in this epic battle against each other. Just as exciting as the competition, they'll also be hosting a training camp for new and existing curlers in the area. It's a real opportunity for local curlers to learn, play alongside, and pick up professional tips from Rachel and Brad. This is a huge buzz right now as both local curling clubs are firing up their ice plants and making ice. So in Saugeen Shores, we are fortunate to have 2 ice pads that the ice installation is staggered. So we are able to install the Coliseum ice 1 week early in 2026 at no additional cost to accommodate the regular Plex ice users. Planning and booking have already occurred and the Coliseum will be ready to host the ice users 1 week early and the Plex will be ready to host the battle for the 1 week duration of the event. The battle is expected to generate just over $940,000 in local economy. The fee to rent the Plex exclusively for the battle is just over $18,000. So the delegation outlined the request for the fees to be waived for the duration of the event setup, takedown, and for the event itself. So staff are recommending that council approve $18,025 allocation from the community donation fund towards the battle event and includes the revenue of $18,025 in the complex budget in the 2026 business plan. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So there's a resolution that council approve an $18,025 allocation from the community donation fund toward the battle event and include the revenue of $18,025 in the complex budget in the 2026 business plan. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, second by Councillor Grace. Questions or comments? The deputy mayor.
This is really this is a great thing, and I'm very supportive of what we're being asked to do here. I wanted to ask though the clerk to comment about the community donation fund. There was something we put in play, a policy, a process. This particular donation we're talking about tonight depletes that fund along with the hospice $5,000 amount, depletes it down to less than $2,000 for consideration for anybody else. So I think I'm going to ask the clerk just to comment. I think there was circulation of information to clubs and organizations. They had a chance to apply. And so, because we're doing something a little bit differently, which is good, I think, to have an amount. However, it's a new process and it's well ahead of the beginning of the year that we're talking about. So I suspect there might be some disappointed people in the future, but I don't know. Dawn, I had asked you this just before the meeting, if you could comment on how information went out to those community groups to give them a chance to submit something for consideration.
The clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So yes, organizations who had connected with the town prior to in previous years, were connected with regard or communicated to with regards to this change in policy for them to be able to submit for consideration for the 2026 budget. So they were sent letters as well as a copy of the policy and a copy of the application.
So assuming that perhaps a couple of them submitted something, will council ever see those submissions?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. In discussions that were happening previously, that was what council had requested. So it was my intention to include that in the package for council's consideration when the donations come forward.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Halpin and then Davinsky.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So the donation is in-kind donation of $18,025. But does that include the $9,200 in staff fees? I didn't quite understand that.
The director.
Thank you for the question, and sorry for any confusion. The 19,000 or the 9,000, sorry, that was outlined in the report really just show the staff support that is required to carry those events out. We do not charge the event for those staffs, but when we collect revenue, it offsets the staffing costs that are required to support those events.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to clarify, so yeah, it's not like they're getting 18,000 plus 9,000. It's 18. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Kristen Schreider. Councillor Halpin has sort of asked the same question I did. In your curling report, are we actually giving the group money or is it a trade thing?
Thank you for the question, and through you, we're not exchanging money with them or providing them money. The rental fee will be waived.
Thank you. You've also indicated the Plex will not lose revenue because we'll open the Coliseum a week early to accommodate the Plex users who lose their ice to curling. If that's the case, why do we have to take the money out of community donations?
Thank you for the question, and through you. So that is revenue that the Plex could generate if the event took place. The delegation outlined a request for those fees to be waived, and the recommendation is so that the Plex still generates that revenue, is that those funds come from the community donation, because that's essentially what it is a donation towards that project or that event, and that revenue goes into the Plex budget.
And just one final follow-up with the deputy mayor, leaving $2,000 or so in community donations. That's an impact. And I'm sorry I didn't talk to you about this ahead of time, but how do we justify taking that money out of community donations, substantial amount of money, and put it into the Plex budget, which is in essence what you're doing, correct?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So it's really just that donation is offsetting the costs and the revenue to run that event. It is a donation towards the event, and it's up to council's discretion. The $25,000, I think, is allocated annually as how you wish to spend it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Kristen. My question is actually a follow-up for Dawn, for the clerk. The $5,000 that's allocated to the hospice in 2026, is that something that was that approved on an ongoing basis? I'm assuming it was. And how long are we doing that?
The CAO will speak to it.
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it was a 4-year commitment that council made, so a $20,000 donation.
Okay, further comments? Well, I think it's going to be a great event, a huge event for the community. Going to draw a lot of people to the community. They'll love the two events they've had, big curling events, the Tankard and the Scotties were both really big events, and this is going to be even bigger, maybe. So it's going to be a great thing, a worthwhile one for council, I think, to fund. And so there's a bit of question about where we're tapping that money from, and I think you can always make adjustments once you get into the budget process. If you want to do more on community donations, then you can find ways to finagle that once you're into the budget. But I think the key question we need to answer today is, are we going to fund this donation? And I hope the answer is yes, because I think it's a good donation for us to make and will benefit the whole community. So if there's nothing further, you've heard the recommendations. Oh, sorry, the Deputy Mayor.
Just to mention, Wednesday, 2:00 is their big kickoff thing at the Port Elgin Curling Club. I know you're planning to go. I am too. Hopefully other people might have an interest in being there too.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the ice in yet. Maybe we'll get to do some curling. All right. So if there's nothing further, I'll ask all in favor. It's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to have any of the items? Does anybody want to vote separately on any of the items in the consent agenda? Well, Councillor Halpin has one yes with respect to your pecuniary interest. So we'll we don't, unless somebody wants to vote on it separately. Well, I suppose, what should we do? I guess we should pull it. So, okay, so we'll pull it. All right, so we'll pull it and consider it on its own. So for now, let's consider, does anybody wish to vote on separately on any of the others? Councillor Divinsky.
Mr. Mayor, I don't wish to vote separately, but I would like to make a comment when it comes to the Integrity Commissioner's annual report.
So what we'll do is, we'll go through each of these in sequence, so you'll have the chance to speak or ask questions on any of them. I just want to know if I have to vote separately. So the only one then we will vote separately on is item, where is the Sparks one? 10.2. All right, so now we will consider a resolution that items 10.1, 10.3, 10.4, and 10.5 be approved and received for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Divinsky. All right, so now we'll go through them. So any questions or comments on 10.1, the variance to budget report? Councillor Halpin.
Just a small comment. It's all good. We're staying on budget.
Sounds good to me. Any further questions on that one? If not, so we're skipping over 10.2, going to 10.3, Saugeen Shores Nuclear Response Plan update. Any questions or comments on the nuclear response plan? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just thank you to our fire chief for this comprehensive update. And, it's good information for everybody to read, and it's reassuring, I guess I would say. So thank you.
Absolutely. Any other comments? It includes one of my favorite acronyms, the PNERP. So we appreciate that one. Okay. So if we're on to now to 10.4, the volunteer firefighter wages update. Any questions or comments on that one, the deputy mayor, and then helping?
I just wanted to acknowledge the fire chief too on this report. And one of the lines that's in it that jumped out at me was the level of loyalty and commitment of the people who are volunteer firefighters. So, the attendance at events is solid, which is good because you don't want a fire to happen and only have a handful of people regularly showing up. I think the volunteer ranks have been built up so much and the training has gone along with that, and it's a committed group of people there. So thank you very much for this report. It's not necessarily as good news as Councillor Halpin just suggested, but certainly it does suggest that something else is coming, which is going to be part of the business plan process. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The call rate is almost a call a day now, which is pretty significant. Just very briefly, who decides who goes to these calls when someone calls 911? I was asked by a member of the public as well.
The fire chief.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Sorry, I haven't been talking in a while. When someone calls 911, they phone the public 911 call receiving area, and that is in Owen Sound. Owen Sound Police answer the 911 calls, and they ask, "What is your emergency?" And out of that emergency, it ends up as police, fire, or EMS. Individuals think that fire respond to everything, and they do, but it's done through many different ways. So one method or one controlling factor is that council has approved a service level of in the establishing and regulatory bylaw that says these are the type of calls that the fire department goes to. So that's the first level, and our fire dispatcher has that. And if it's outside of the regulatory bylaw, we won't be dispatched. They may phone me or the deputy and ask for input, but they won't dispatch us. The second piece of it is that for medical calls, we have a tiered service agreement that speaks to the type of medical calls that we go to. Again, council approved that as part of our the establishing regulatory bylaw. And presently we go to VSAs, vital sign absent. We go to anaphylaxis, overdoses, and choking calls. And any time that EMS think they have an extraordinary circumstance like a lift assist or they're a long way out of town and need help. For council's information, our medical calls are down significantly from last year, which surprises me. The other way is that you would think that a car accident is a fire call, but it's not. It's an EMS call. So they would say, "What is your emergency?" The person would say, "I see a car accident on the road." They would send that call to CAC, the Community Ambulance Communication Center in London. London would send a message back to our dispatcher to put us on the road. So it's not a perfect system. There's many different ways that we're notified. Sometimes you would think we would be notified and we're not. And sometimes we're notified for things that we don't necessarily should go to. But there's multiple agencies involved, but really the regulatory bylaw dictates our service level and what we go to and what we don't.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you. We really appreciate our fire department.
You bet. Further questions or comments? Yeah, I think that so we're going to be looking at $500,000 in volunteer wages at the end of 2025. But we have 50 firefighters. So we're spending $10,000 per firefighter, which is the best deal in the history of the universe, right? I mean, you're getting 50 super dedicated firefighters who are showing up at all these calls, one per day. and who you can rely on to keep the community safe in the event of fire, car accident, and everything else under the sun, $10,000 per person per year. You're just not gonna do any better. It's the best investment the taxpayer of Saugeen Shores is making, hands down. So, so I don't have any trouble. I'm not gonna be too concerned about that, when budget comes around. Are there further, comments or questions from members? Seeing none, we'll move on then to communications, 10.5, the deputy mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. There's one item on the list, the correspondence from Enbridge Gas about the future of natural gas expansion. Understanding, climate change and the relationship with natural gas, I think we've had discussions here about the value of natural gas in the mix, in terms of making sure people stay warm and that sort of thing when electricity is down. I think there's some merit for consideration to supporting this, but it was a rather long, convoluted document that I couldn't quite tell if it was intended for communities like us or if it was more up north. So, but I think support of expansion of natural gas is something that makes sense in our area where there are some challenges with electricity during certain times of the year when heat is important.
I can say it was sent specifically to me. And so I asked it to be put on the agenda. So I guess to that extent, it was intended for us. They sent it to the town of Saugeen Shores specifically. Councillor Halpin.
We have until 11:58 to comment on it.
So Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you for that, Councillor Help. I'm referring to the Integrity Commissioner's annual report for Saugeen Shores. I encourage everyone to read it. It's a short read, but it does tell a lot about what happens with the Integrity Commissioner. And I think there were 6 calls made to the Integrity Commissioner past year. I know I was one of them because I was concerned about a conflict of interest on something. But the reason I wanted to comment on it is because if you look at the area where the Integrity Commissioner looks into things and so on, I would just like to give a tip of the hat to our staff who have dealt professionally and courteously with the Integrity Commissioner this past year. It's been mentioned by the Integrity Commissioner at the end of his report. And, we don't often hear about that. We wonder what the staff's doing and other things that are going on, but they have to deal with this too. And thank you all who have to deal with it. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Are there further questions or comments on, the deputy mayor?
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the natural gas one.
So one, Councillor Halpin's point is well made. I'm not sure we have much time to comment. I think council has made a statement recently on natural gas expansion and our general support. And I think, although I don't disagree necessarily with this position, I am a little leery about just passing resolutions sent to us by private sector companies to support their whatever it is they're looking to do. Like, I just think holus bolus, picking those things up and passing them is, I don't know, something just strikes me as kind of wrong about that. So I think we've made ourselves clear. We support natural gas within the town of Saugeen Shores. And I think when we spoke to it, it was in the context of potential changes from the OEB with respect to the ability to amortize the costs over a period of time, yada, yada, yada. So we made ourselves clear on that. And from my perspective, I don't think we need to do more than that. Are there further comments on any of the pieces of correspondence? If not, then so it's the motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That is carried. So now we're going to go back to 10.2, and Councillor Halpin has a pecuniary interest in that matter. So That's the Sparks Training Center request. I'll read the resolution on this. That council authorize the Director of Community Services to execute a one-year lease agreement with the Saugeen Sparks Training Center for administrative use of the town-owned business center at 559 Goddard Street. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Gray, second by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? The Vice Deputy Mayor and then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just again wanted to thank the organizers, Saugeen Sparks Training Center. I know Councilor Matt's really been involved over the years and Councilor Halpin. I just want to thank both of them for all the work they put into this, and Robert Stanley and others. I think they got a great board. And I just, when I was reading the report, over 40 graduates have secured employment with municipal and regional employers as well as provincial labor unions. It's just a great number, and the number is just going to keep growing. The number of graduates finding employment, and so great work. I did have a question about the financial implication right at the bottom of the report. I wasn't quite understanding what this meant. The town council will not have to entertain future funding requests for leases from the organization, while noting that the intent of this request to provide the town space at no cost. What does it mean when it says will not have to entertain future funding requests for leases? I don't quite get that.
CAO.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the intent of the group making the request is to reflect upon the past 2 years where they've made budget requests to council, I think in the amount of 80,000, 50,000 in 2024 and 30,000 this year. We're testing my memory. So I think their intent is to articulate that they won't make additional funding requests, that they are looking for the in-kind contribution of the town space at no cost.
I guess my point is, if this organization decided to make additional funding requests, is something that council would consider. I don't know why. I just wasn't happy with the fact we'll not have to entertain future funding requests. So I don't understand why we wouldn't entertain future funding requests. I think the town of Hanover, for example, I think they funded their organization up towards $1 million, I think, over the last 10 years, $100,000 a year for 10 years. Not to say that we should be doing $1 million, 100 grand a year for 10 years, but I for one, I think this is just a great service that they're providing to our community, providing some much needed training in some very important fields and occupations. Plumbers, electricians, welders. Just a great service. And so I guess I just wasn't sure. I wish that hadn't have said that. Personally, town council would not have to entertain future funding requests. I just think that I think if council wants to entertain those requests, we should be able to entertain those requests.
The CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think council can entertain any request that comes forward to it at any time. I think, again, the intent was, and apologies that the language isn't really clear, that in 2025, the request to this council for the 2026 budget is not for dollars, but is for space. So it is specific to the 2026 request, and apologies if the language implied something broader than that.
Okay, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. It is a great organization and provides an incredible opportunity for students of all ages to get some training. At some point, the equity between organizations for receiving lease agreements from the town, some are $1 a year, some pay a little bit more than that, some have utilities costs worked in there. I'm assuming the intent here is, well, they got $30,000 to help them with some rent. So if you look at the first 3 months of 2026, that's a $7,500 quote unquote donation, but it doesn't fit into the donation pool, because I think the donation pool is intended for events and that sort of thing, not operating costs. Is the idea here a one-year situation, or is this a in perpetuity kind of situation with the space? And there is some language in there that talks about the potential for the space to change and morph perhaps that would effectively perhaps kick them out in a certain at a certain point. Is this a 1-year sort of situation we're talking about, or is that known yet?
CAO.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the report clarifies, sorry, I'm looking for the reference, but that it would be till March 31st, 2027. So it's 1 year starting April 1st, 2026 that they've requested in the business plan coming forward to council. We also are going to note that a review of the business center and its use to the town will be coming forward in 2026 through our development services team, as we recognize that our staff that are currently in that space will be relocated to this facility once it opens in the new year. So there'll be that report coming forward to council in 2026 as well.
Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Question for Amanda, and thank you for the report, and thank you for, I think this is a fantastic organization, and I'm very happy to support them. I just wanted to ask a question about utilities costs and whether we know yet if the Spark Center will be contributing anything towards utilities.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the utility costs will be negotiated in the lease agreements. That is something that we're discussing with both Sparks and Pumpkin Fest.
Okay. Further questions or comments? So I mean, this is a good news thing. Council has been the town has been a big supporter of Sparks all along. We've given, what, $80,000, I think, so far over a couple of years, and now talking about that. And this is really a good news story because it's taking that thing that has cost us $80,000 and turning it into an in-kind contribution. So it's reducing it's eliminating our cash layout using a piece of property we already have and giving Spark what they need without costing the taxpayer cash. So I think it's a great thing. It's a smart thing. We want to support them. We're still huge supporters, and we're staying huge supporters, and we're doing it in the smartest way possible. So it's a great report and a great outcome, I think, for everybody. So if there's nothing further, you've heard the recommendation. All in favor? That is carried. Okay. So then we're to the end then of the consent agenda, and we're moving on to mayoral decisions and directions. Before you is a decision and direction, so just for, I know members of council understand this, but for members of the public who maybe listening or watching, and this is sort of a new thing. So we're required now as part of the budget, in order to advance the budget has to come from the mayor. So in order to do pre-budget approvals, those pre-budget things have to also come from the mayor. My approach to this has been to simply take what the administration identifies as its needs and channel them through directly to council. So I haven't, this is not really coming from me, it's coming from the administration. And so when you see these things in future, understand that although they do come from me, I may or may not support the things that are in them, and will have my own views on them as well. But this is how we have to do it. So this is how we're doing it. So anyway, you have the directions and report in front of you, and I'll ask if there's questions or comments from members. Start with the deputy mayor and go around.
I have 3 questions. Hopefully they're brief. Number 2 on the list is related to the High Street downtown phase 2, and it's $1.6 million. Is this in addition to the contract or the tender that was awarded in May that showed up as $5.3 million, I think? Is this $1.6 million in that value, or is this in addition to that value? That's question number 1.
The manager of engineering services.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, it is included in 5.3 million. Actually, we have planned in 2 phases. The first phase is now ongoing, which is $3 million, and this is for the second phase, phase 2, for 2026. We have already approved 10-year business plan, so we are just asking a pre-approval so that we can start the phase two a little bit earlier. Hopefully this year, if we have a good weather. So our plan just to complete the phase two by spring next year.
Thank you for that. And I sincerely hope that the timeline and the weather cooperate to have the project happen in a really efficient way. I think that that would be a real nice bonus for downtown Southampton. Don't go anywhere. The Highway 21 project is mentioned here too with an additional, I think it was $500,000. Yes, this is the resurfacing project. I wanted to ask a question about when communication will start with adjacent property owners and with the community in general with regard to that project. Will we wait until after the tender is awarded? I hope that we get lucky like we did this year with a contract where the contractor gets us in really early and gets our project done ahead of perhaps their other projects in the construction season. But we haven't had much communication with the community yet or with property owners that are along the highway with this project. Do you have a sense of when that communication plan might be enacted?
Thank you again. And through you, Mr. Mayor, we are planning for the PIC the early November. So, and all the residents will be notified through our engaged Saugeen Shore. And also the impacted resident will try to do the handle flyers to them. So as I said, our plan to do the first PIC on November first week.
I'm sorry, you plan the first public information center.
Public Information Center on November first week.
You mean the week of November 1st?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just curious if there'll be specific reaching out to any of the businesses that potentially will have some impact. I'm thinking Foodland, Rexall, some of the services that some of the businesses that kind of for many people are almost daily visits. Not for all of us, but for some people. Those businesses, will they just hear about it and have to come out to that, or will we reach out to businesses to kind of let them know what we're planning, what's in the works, and how that might impact them?
Thank you again, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that is the plan. In the first PIC, we will be presenting the design, and it will be very similar that what we did for the Godrej, just mill and pave. So it will be fast construction. That's what we are expecting. And again, if we get the pre-approval for this 500K, in addition to grant, as this 500K for water main improvements to the Saugeen First Nation service. And grant does not cover any water main work. So the recommendation from Aqua and our public works to replace all the valves, because we had some break or valve leakings in last couple of years. So they recommended to replace all the valves. It came from Aqua, and to fund that, we need this additional 500K.
Is the meeting on November the 1st intended to be at the town hall in Southampton?
That's the intent, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
One of the other items on the list relates to the Blue Water lands, and it talks about $250,000 for 2026 and then $250,000 for the year after. Is that related to engineering and infrastructure? Like what is that dollar figure associated with?
The Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that funding is for studies, design, planning reports, and a contingency if there are upgraded infrastructure is needed.
And the Blue Water lands, are these the lands that are adjacent to the Family Y?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
And just a note, back to the Public Information Center, the manager said that it would be in the week of the 1st of November, not necessarily on the 1st of November. Am I right about that? We don't have a date yet. I just don't want anybody to think there's a Public Information Center on the 1st of November necessarily, or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, that's we are planning.
The 1st of November is the
Yeah.
date? Okay,
Actually, we actually planned for November 3rd,
okay.
but we have to double check.
So it's the week of the 1st of November at the moment, and it will be communicated publicly once we have the actual time. Are there further, Councilor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And thanks to Jim and everybody who's prepared this. I think overall it's a good idea because to me, the justifications are presented here that we'd be saving me money, we'd be getting a jump on projects, especially projects where timing, to prevent timing as much as possible from going into our summer seasons. I do have a question about the community services operator tablets and the Blue Water Lands development. And for those, in the description of the report, it didn't really talk about why it was important to get this funding approved early. So if you could, somebody could explain why we needed that pre-approval for those two items.
The
Please.
Director of Development Services.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of those items can be tackled by our Manager of Development Services, who's prepared to explain the rationale for having an early approval of the Blue Water, and I assume someone else will speak to the tablets.
Probably the Director of Community Services, but we'll start with the manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Blue Water Lands seeking the pre-approval there is to ensure that that project can keep moving. There has been a recent announcement by the federal government for Build Canada Homes, as well as an additional $1.5 billion into the existing affordable housing budget for say the traditional stream. And so the sooner we can get shovel ready, the more likely we could get access to that funding.
And then the Director of Community Services.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation for pre-approval for the tablets is to get our staff to have the ability with the devices in order to use the devices for work orders and inspections and things like that. Right now, we currently don't have them, and I think working with Darren and our IT team is that there's some synergy in order for them to order them early, set them up, and then have us start the year fresh with these resources for staff.
Okay, further questions on this? The Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll be supporting, I think, well, it's Mayor's powers, right? But I think pre-budget approval is good planning. And I think if we can get ahead of some of these projects, it's very competitive out there with the people that we're bidding on the projects, and putting those construction workers in place ahead of time and securing their services. I think it's just really, really good for us to do that, because these people do get booked up from year to year. So we'll get ahead of the game and get out of the chute quickly in 2026, which is good. Jim, our director, Jim, the previous plan, you talked about the capital special levy. The 9 projects won't impact that. I think it was 2 years ago. I think now was it $44 a year, I think, or 440, I think it was $44 a year. But that won't impact that in any way.
Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you for that question. We had with the capital special levy, or the future infrastructure special levy, we were increasing it annually by $49 a year. That is still the plan. The capital budget that we're putting together, or the 10-year plan that we're putting together, is still within the same limits as it was before. These pre-approvals do not change the total value that's being requested. So you won't have any surprises come November. It'll be still the consistent special levy that we had before.
Thank you for that. And I did have a question about the Blue Water Lands as well, through you to Jay, but it did say about the project as a combination of affordable housing parkland development. With the parkland development component, when we're talking about $250,000, will the parkland development portion be paid for? Jay, are you implying we'll pay for some of that, or will the developer be paying for the parkland development?
No, Mayor, thank you. I think what we described is that this would help with design studies, getting some early infrastructure and the consultation. I'm not sure how far that tranche of money will go, but and you will be given a report shortly on the results of the request for proposals that we went out. So without, preempting that process, just to say that we know that the funding from the federal government is contingent on being shovel ready, and we want to make sure we can support whoever is the selected proponent to get to that stage as quickly as possible, including parkland design and whatever else needs to happen, because we want to have, I think, a 2-acre park is what we put in the proposal. And because it's a neighborhood park that needs to be located down there, and so it should go in hand with the residential development.
Okay, and the manager of engineering services looks like he wants to say something. The manager.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a correction. We have planned for the PIC on November 6th at Town Hall.
Okay, 6th of November. Write it on a tablet. All right, Councillor Helpman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This does look a little different than when it came to us other years, like through the mayoral powers and everything like this, but I did have a number of questions and staff answered them all very promptly for me. And I think this just shows the value of having that 10-year plan, because it does give us a bit of flexibility. We actually have a rough budget for the next 10 years. So if we need to tweak something to save a bit of money, I think this is all good. So staff, forgive me for the barrage of questions I gave you, but I understand now.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Are there further comments? Don't see any. So based on your input, then I will proceed to sign mayoral decision 2025-004. And then council will have 30 days in which to propose amendments if you wish. And once those 30 days expire, these amendments, these pre-budget approvals will come into force in effect. All right. So then we're going on to close the public, and it's recommended that council move into a close the public session. And the resolution, well, to discuss and provide direction and receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege on a litigation matter relative to conflicting title ownership for a town-owned property. The resolution is that council move into a closed public session in accordance with Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And so I'll ask for mover and seconder. Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Grace. All in favor? Council will convene and closed at 9:30 p.m. Okay, so I have a resolution that council arise from the closed public session and resume the regular council meeting. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councilor Grace, seconded by Councilor Davinsky. All in favor? That is carried. And I will report that during the closed to public session, council approved closed to public minutes and discussed matters relative to litigation, receiving advice subject to solicitor-client privilege from the town solicitor regarding rectification of title application for a town-owned property. Okay, so now we are on to bylaws. One bylaw there for your consideration. The resolution is that bylaw 93-2025 is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 22nd day of September 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Halpin, seconded by Davinsky. Questions or comments of the bylaw? Councilor Grace?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question about, I tried to look up the original resolution 80-2019, and I just didn't know where to look. I forgot to ask a question, send in a question to staff about it, but how big is this? I saw the map, but I couldn't tell how big a section of property we talking about.
Who will speak to that? The Director of Development Services.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the exact direct dimensions in front of me, but it's a very narrow rectangle of strip of land adjacent to the Eckford Road allowance. I can look up those dimensions if you like later.
I guess you figured out the value of the purchase price by a formula in terms of how, I don't need to know the exact dimensions. I'm just wondering, it's a fairly small amount in the purchase price. So, oh, and just one other thing I forgot to send in. Under the purchase price, just a spelling error. Should be 100, not 100.
The CAO may know
Thanks.
dimensions here. CAO.
Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and this was a report that the director brought forward, I think a month or two ago in the summertime around this, but the dimensions on the plan of survey that's attached are 7.9 by 15.2. I would assume metric, so I would assume meters.
Okay. All right. So the resolution is moved and seconded. If there's nothing further, then all in favor? That is carried. And we're on the confirmatory bylaw. The resolution is that bylaw 94-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 22nd day of September 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Halpin, seconded by Stack. All in favor? That is carried. And finally, a resolution of this regular council meeting of September 22nd, 2025, hereby adjourns at 9:51 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Stack, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening.